Okay, here we go. Hey, everybody. So today I have my friend and a very special guest, Sarah Gaines. I was telling Sarah that I was putting together a module within Let Love In to really talk about this topic of body positivity and how the word is very popular these days, but I'm not sure a lot of us really understand what that word means and how it relates to our own self-love and our worth. And so as I was crafting this topic of conversation, I literally reached for my phone because I heard this booming voice in my head that said, call Sarah Gaines to talk about this. So here she is live in the flesh. We're recording the podcast live for those of you on Facebook and within the Heart Followers group. But Sarah is a dear friend of mine. We were connected. Gosh, Sarah, do you even remember who? I think we've had this conversation of who tried to connect us years ago.
I don't remember who tried to connect us, but then I do remember that we connected when you were planning the Summit of Love.
That's right. That's right. And I think from there we met in person with Danielle Gertner, who's Sarah's best friend, and we just we went off from there, and it's created this beautiful friendship. And Sarah does these full moon and new moon circles that I've been a part of, and it just feels like a really great way to receive. So Sarah, I'm so glad that I'm a part of those. But Sarah, if you don't follow her on Instagram, please, the first thing you need to do after this podcast is go, because she brings such love and such light and such joy on topics such as self-love, body positivity, and really truly going deeper within to really understand what it is that we need and what we want so that we can live this really joyful life. And for those of you who are looking at Sarah live, Sarah is definitely looks like she's expressing joy because she just moved to Florida and she's got that Florida glow, or as you were calling it, that joy glow.
Joy glow.
Sarah, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to chat about this.
As am I.
When we were talking earlier, I had asked you a question that I ask all my guests, which is, what is your intention for today? And especially as we were talking about this discussion around self-love and self-worth and body positivity, what comes to mind when I ask you that question?
Well, gratitude for one thing, because intention, in my opinion, is the most important thing in the world. And so I would ask everybody too, even before I share my intention, what's your intention for listening to this conversation? There's an airplane flying overhead. I don't know if you could hear that.
Yes, we could. That's okay.
Yeah. All right. We'll just...
Makes me feel like I'm on vacation.
Yeah. So my intention for this conversation is to bring forth my knowledge from my own experience, both personally, from what I've learned from different spiritual practices and studies, to ultimately allow at least one nugget of wisdom to flow through for anybody to grab, which would spark an awareness within themselves that the love that you truly desire, like deep down, is 1000% possible. And it starts with you. And so my intention is to allow people to come to some spark of an awareness that it starts within you, and to find that and to feel that.
Yeah, because I think so many of us go to the outside, whether it's the job that we have, whether it's the promotion, the cash, or what I try to focus on more in these days is really talking about seeking validation outside of ourselves from those that we're attracted to. Yes. And, the majority of the people that listen to this group, to this podcast, are a group of people who are high achieving, who are constantly looking for the next best thing to make them feel good, who really truly desire and love to develop themselves, but there feels like there's something missing.
Yeah.
And I would say that even to go kind of a step further is, they are people who have taken time off from dating to just focus on themselves, but with zero game plan other than a podcast and a book, which you guys know I love me some podcasts and books, but that can only really get you so far, in my opinion. And so what I find is that a lot of these people are saying things like, I hate online dating. COVID's hard right now to be dating. I just broke up with this person. There's no way, shape, or form you're going to get me out there and date again. But I had shared with you right before the podcast that But underneath that is a really big fear that we will not be loved, or we will not receive the kind of love that we've been desiring. And if I hear another 20 something or another 60 something year old say to me that I'm too old to fall in love, I'm about to come through the podcast and give you a little on the face. Okay. And so that's really our audience today, Sarah, and also understanding that when we are so immersed in this idea of we are constantly seeking validation outside of ourselves, we develop the habit of codependency or love addiction, which is that of compulsively trying to get somebody else to love us so that we will feel good enough. And this then bleeds out into how we show up at work, how we're showing up in the bedroom with ourselves or with other people, how we're text messaging, the friends that we're surrounding ourselves with, the people that we are still either holding on to, meaning if we're trying to get over our ex, but we keep thinking about them, or we're still texting them or stalking them on social media. And I thought, you brought up this really great point of inner child. And so my first question to you is, what is an inner child? For those of us who don't know, and like, what does an inner child really need in order to feel like safe, heard, or understood, and try to give ourselves that kind of love that you talked about?
The way I connect with my inner child is simply thinking about who I was as a child. And it's really as basic as that. And there are so many wounds that we have accrued from childhood that stay within us, those feelings, those experiences, whether it was something really large and catastrophic to something that's maybe quite simple. And there are things that we might forget about, or we've, lost sight of, we've blocked out mentally. And these things get stored within us, and ultimately they continue to manifest themselves throughout our entire lives. And as you said, oftentimes in relationships. And so when we're connecting with our inner child, it's starting to think about, okay, who was I as a child? What experiences did I go through? What were my relationships like? How was I cared for? How was I loved? Did I have parental units? Did I have both of them? Did I have one of them? Siblings, what have you. And ultimately really starting to recognize that who you were then has shaped who you are now. And the three, as I've learned in my studies with Kabbalah, which is a spiritual practice that I'm in, the three essential elements that all of our inner children need are to feel safe, to feel loved, and to have the freedom to express ourselves creatively. And when you take those three elements and you bring them into your life as an adult, you can ask yourself, well, do I feel safe? Do I feel loved? Do I have the freedom to express myself creatively? Do I feel that freedom to express myself creatively? And ultimately, if you don't, which is oftentimes we don't, majority of the time we don't, but you can start to ask yourself, okay, how can I make myself feel more safe here? How can I make myself feel more loved here? How can I express myself creatively?
That makes so much sense. And it made me even think of the example that so many people say, myself included, which is like, I never used my voice when I was in relationships, meaning,
oh yeah,
while I'm quite animated, and I don't mean it from that respect, but you said something to me before we started the podcast, which I really resonated with, which is that I often felt like I was too much, or I felt that I was needy, or I felt that I was crazy for wanting to feel safe, or wanting to feel like adored, or whatever the case may be. And I was constantly, your 3 points, right? I was constantly looking for other people to make me feel safe, to make me feel loved, and to help me understand and express myself. I remember sitting with a boyfriend and I was reading this 5-year book that somebody had given me. It was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It was a parting gift from leaving a job. And I couldn't answer the questions, Sarah. This was back in 2015. I couldn't answer the questions that they were asking. They were very basic, like, what's your favorite personality trait about yourself, or things like that. I just didn't know myself. And I remember turning to him and saying, like, well, how would you describe me? And he's like, I'm not going to do this. And I was like, what do you mean? And it made me realize in that moment, like, I was so seeking validation from other people. That's the best way I could describe it, to tell me who am I and what do I like.
Uh, yes. Wow. And I mean, that notion of losing yourself in a relationship, I mean, I can certainly relate to that. I know other people can relate to that. And there's a spectrum, right? Because there is, what you described, there's also like really small elements, as we were talking before, you shared about even shifting your communication style based on the other person. And without that groundedness of knowing yourself and standing firm in that, you're going to continue to perpetuate that for the rest of your life. And you're going to continue to feel this sense of unfulfilledness, of this longing for this connection, of this maybe sadness for it not being in the relationship, or maybe thinking, oh, well, like it might get better. It's just like this one thing. But when deep down, you know what you want, and what you really need to hear is that it's possible, but you need to create that container for yourself, because we are what we attract, right? We attract what we are. Our internal world is what is represented in the external world. And so we can start to practice that love, that safety, that pride in ourselves, we're going to begin to see that in the external.
I think as you were saying that, my mind was going to, I think the reason why we don't do those things that we know, quote unquote, we should, is because we're really deeply afraid that we won't get what we want, or that we're too much, right? Like, oh, for me to want somebody that's 6'5", or somebody who's a good cook, or somebody's a great dancer who wants to take pictures of us on Christmas in the same matching pajamas, like I'm too much, right? But going back to something that you reminded me that I said too, was like, I hear this so often, and I definitely did this. If I was first getting to know someone and they were texting all day, every day, and I wasn't a big texter or was at work or whatever, I felt compelled to respond. And then it became this hook, this high every time that, oh gosh, if they didn't send the good morning text, then they must not be into me. And it was like, and this is what I teach the women in the Love In, is like, hey, you get to choose. Do you want to be somebody who does send the good morning, good evening, good afternoon text, or do you want to be somewhere in between? And what you often hear is so many people will say, I thought I wanted the good morning, good afternoon, good evening text, but I realized I just want the reassurance that I am safe, that I am loved. And back to what you said, that I can fully express myself with a funny meme or a text or no response at all. And I'm still going to be safe, and I'm still going to be loved.
Love how you just described as not responding at all as part of expressing yourself.
Yes.
That is huge. And I kind of come from the opposite side of the spectrum of what you just described, of if I wasn't getting a text back, I would start to think, oh, well, like, what is this person? Maybe they're not interested in me. Da, 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 da. And I would start to create these stories in my head. And coming back to the inner child, what I realized is I had a very like tangible moment that I could pinpoint from being a teenager, when I had a situation where somebody didn't answer the text message and I was really hurt. And then like come to find out the next day that like something happened, but whatever. It was a traumatizing event in that instance, what made me think, if I didn't get this response, it means that they're no longer interested. And then here I am 12 years later, still feeling that same feeling of anxiety in my heart, in my chest, when it really was going back to my inner teenager. So what I ended up doing in that instance was, when I realized that, I said, okay, Sarah, 16-year-old Sarah, like, what are you actually feeling right now? Like, what do you actually want to say? And I gave her the space to speak. I gave her the space to say, oh my God, but like, I don't know if he likes me anymore. And, like, it's just like, I don't get it because we were just texting, and like all the stuff that you would be like, okay, like whatever. But I let her speak fully, because that's what she had been trying to do the whole time. And as soon as I did that and I gave her that space, it was, okay, now reality. Here I am. I'm a grown ass woman. I'm very desirable. Like a text message is not determining this. You know what I mean?
Yes. So many thoughts were popping back. I was thinking too that if you go back to that 16-year-old self, I remember actually I had a similar example happen. I had gone on a trip and the guy I was dating didn't text me back. He ended up cheating on me and it became this traumatic thing. So
Yeah.
but at 16, Sarah, I didn't know who to talk to about it other than my girlfriends who were
Right.
giving me all sorts of different advice. Oh, screw him, or oh my gosh, you should just hit him back, or you should be angry, right? So you had like all different perspectives.
Yeah.
But really, when you were talking, I was thinking, but what I probably did was that's when I shut my voice down and didn't really get angry. I didn't really express, so I avoided. And that's why I think that we immediately, we're reminded of something that's happened in the past, but that's why we immediately do it again, is
Yeah.
because we just want to avoid those really hard feelings of feeling confused, of feeling angry, of feeling sad. I call them big feelings. Like when you have big feelings come up and you're just like, there's so many at one time, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
But I think at that young of an age, we really didn't understand what to make of this. And so you're right, we told ourselves the story that this person doesn't like us. But also, Sarah, one step further, I think for me, when I was losing interest in someone at a young age or even into my 20s, I also did the same thing. I avoided. So I didn't hit it straight on and say, listen, I'm feeling pretty disconnected from you many weeks or months before the relationship ended. So what happens is I was a boiling point. And then all of a sudden I would just simmer and be like, this is over, I'm done.
Yep.
But I was firing warning shots all the way through, but never actually speaking up, never actually saying that. So that's why I think I correspond the same or correlate the same thing. If they're not texting me back, therefore it means they're losing interest, because I used to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point of not addressing it, right? Like we push those feelings down, those emotions down. We distract ourselves with work, with Netflix, with social media, with dating a ton, with, with all of these things, with alcohol, with substances, all these things. So I don't have to deal and feel these feelings, which are creating my reality over and over and over again. But if we gave ourselves the level of safety to say, hey, it's okay, you're safe to feel these feelings fully, we could address them, see them, hear them, and then choose another way.
1000%. And to your point, being able to invite the fear in. I mean, there's a great meditation that I send a lot of people, Sarah Blondin on Insight Meditation. She talks about when fear comes, right? And all those feelings come, you get a knock at the door, except it's like a do, and you just open the door. And like you gave the example, you let it in.
Yeah.
You say, tell me what you want to say. And it was funny, Sarah, you might not have realized this, but your voice went to a 16-year-old self while you were explaining it. You were like, I'm not sure if he.
Oh no, yeah, 100%.
It was
that
so
was
cute.
my 16-year-old self coming through.
Oh, totally. And my 16-year-old self, when I visualize her, because I've been doing some inner child work the last few years, but more so this last year, she's shrunken forward. I mean, she's the same size. I haven't grown since high school, but she is literally shoulders down, chest down, chin down, which is the surefire sign that you're depressed.
1000%. And I mean, we move into the conversation about body positivity. I more so like to even just use the phrase body acceptance, because I think body positivity, especially now, has so much connotation. And ultimately, it's just acceptance of where you are right now and all that you've experienced. There's so much power in our body. Our body holds everything. Our body is the holder of all wisdom. And we can use our body to acknowledge, how do we actually feel about a situation? And so to your point, like the shrunken shoulders, like that's literally protecting your heart when we're doing this. And so when you catch that, you could recognize it and say, okay, I'm going to sit up here, and start to catch yourself throughout the day, every single day, and pull your shoulders back. Start to sit up tall and proud in the person you are now.
Absolutely. And I think, as I'm starting to understand, I mean, mind, body, and spirit connection, it's something that we've heard when yoga became that massive craze all those years ago. But it's so true, is that if we can really look at what are the thoughts that we are thinking about our body, about the stories that we are telling ourselves that somebody else's behavior means about us. And we can catch ourselves in the moment to just say, I love that expression that you did earlier, the 16-year-old self, like, all right, so lay it on me. What do you have to say? And it's like, I'm not sure if he likes me. And like, instead of going to your best friend or going to your mom or going to somebody else to talk it through, it's what I do personally is I first get quiet. But Sarah, I had to retrain myself because what I used to do is go to everybody else. Then I started in 12-step recovery and stopped drinking, stopped using sex or love as my drug. And I then was able to use someone or many people in the fellowship as that first line of defense, but they were safer, they were trusted. And now over years, I've been in program for 11 years, is now my first line of defense is to go to self and to say, what do you need? Are you hungry or tired or lonely or angry? Do you want some water? Have you peed yet? Like, what?
Yes.
Basic shit.
Yes.
But then going, so what do I need? And now what I'm starting to learn with the inner child stuff is then bringing, so I have two. I have my 6-year-old self, and then I have the 14-year-old. And they're now, she's a freshman in high school. And, 6th grade, that's the first year you entered into school. And there was traumatic things that happened around that time to now ask them, so what do you want to do? And I heard the other day, and I was telling a client that, she was laughing, but I was like, literally, I asked her as we were all laying in bed together in the morning. And I was like, what do you guys want to do today? And I heard, we're going to the beach. Like,
I love it.
Beach. And I was like, looking at the calendar, adult Katie was like, how do we make that happen? And I was like, well, we're out of 3 kids. Let's go.
Yes.
How about you? How do you connect?
Yes. I love that so beyond much. And I think you talk about going to other people, right? And I loved when you were saying earlier, right? Like your friends are telling you one thing, or like you should be angry, or you should do that, or this, or that, and that. And that's all coming from their own shit.
Yes,
yes. We have enough of our own. We don't need to take on anybody else.
It's so true. And I think that's right. Like, that's why when our parents are trying to make us feel better, but they're just projecting all their fears.
That might be the worst.
Oh my God. I remember when I started my business, Sarah, and my dad was doing the same thing. And I was like, Pops, this is your stuff. This is not mine. Like,
oh my goodness.
I'm going to go do this. Yeah. And
yeah.
So when you were talking about body acceptance, a lot of the people that I was sharing with you that listen to the podcast and stuff, I think have either suffered from eating disorders or workout. I like to call it like a workout disorder, where when we're first attracted to somebody, we get this hit of dopamine and we're working out all the time. And in a way, we're trying to make ourselves smaller or more fit, as opposed to just doing what feels great for us. I wondered what your thoughts are on that. But the second thing that came to mind was actually accepting other people's bodies. I think so much of my relationships, not that I had a type, but I definitely had a type. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was always going, and I'll never forget, a friend said this to me, that she said, I used to date men who were bigger than me so that I would feel smaller and protected and safe. And I was like, oh my God, all my boyfriends have been well over 6 feet. And like, one of them was like 6'5" or 6. I mean, I'm 5'4". There's no reason to go up on a step stool to get up that high. And when she said it, I was at Lola's in Locos in Boston, and I'm bawling into my taco meal here. And she's like, what is true for you? And I'm like, holy shit, I always dated men who were bigger than me. So I felt skinnier or smaller or protected and taken care of. And while some of those men were incredible, right, there were some that were not. But I realized that I was constantly looking for somebody whose body was active or strong, or like, and I would pick apart the people who weren't. I just, like, looking back on it, like, what the fuck?
To the point about picking apart the people who weren't, how much were you picking apart yourself?
Oh, Sarah, so well said. That's exactly what I was doing. I was
Yeah.
criticizing. You ever look back at yourself at like 14-year-old Sarah or whatever, and the body part that you didn't particularly love at 30 something, you then go back and you look at it at 14 and you go, oh my God, you like, what are you talking about? That's not even a thing.
I just shared that on Instagram yesterday, actually. A photo came across from 2015. And I mean, much of my background, as you know, but for some listeners, really is in healing body image. And that stems back from my own, orthorexia, obsessive with healthy eating and over exercise, and just horrible body image after bodybuilding and all these things. And this photo came across from 2015, and I look at it and I'm like, damn, my goodness, what a body. But I remember at that time, it was actually like the peak of my worst body image ever, where I was picking myself apart. And, I always say your body image has nothing to do with your body at all. It has everything to do with your thoughts about your body, with your mental health, the things that are going on with your life. Because body image, right? Image is perception. Perception is your reality. Your thoughts create your reality. So the thoughts about your body are creating your body image. It has nothing to do with your body.
Yeah. Say that one more time, because it is that important that people really need to hear that. Because I like literally, when I heard what Sarah just described last year, I heard it, and then I just kept repeating it again and again and again. The whole thing about thoughts creating reality, like go through that again, Sarah. Like, you guys grab a pen and a piece of paper. Like, this, what Sarah's about to say is going to change your reality.
Yeah, because your reality is created by your thoughts. Your thoughts create your reality. Perception is your reality. Everybody lives through a different reality, a different lens. So perception creates your reality. Image, body image, it's just a perception of your body. So your thoughts about your body are creating your body image. It is not your body which is creating your body image.
Absolutely. And, I think too, the power of our thoughts is so, I mean, that's what she's saying, you guys, like literally what you're thinking, the stories you're telling yourself, the beliefs you're having, even if it's just you're passing by the mirror and it's like, oh, your stomach is too big today, or oh, you're bloated, or oh, your butt looks incredible in those jeans. Either your butt looks incredible in those jeans is going to send you off for a great day, or the opposite is going to be true, where it's going to create a reality of not feeling good enough and everything's going to shrink down and go down.
Yes.
Right. So this is why when people are saying mental health, this is what they're referring to. It's like the thoughts you're thinking. And yes, for some of us, there might be a chemical imbalance or whatever. I've been trying to understand that about my own, because I'm up and down all the time. But I'm realizing too that a big part of it was all the food that I used to eat, Sarah, that I thought was healthy, or believe me, all the shit that wasn't healthy has actually been ripping away at the lining of my stomach, which is creating these thoughts that I'm not good enough. So now I'm rebalancing my gut, because this is starting to get really sharp. Yes. But I now have to, I only exercise based on what feels aligned for my body. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm not feeling like lifting weights, I'm not a runner, like, I'm not wanting to do those HIIT workouts, because that doesn't feel aligned. That actually puts me in a fight or flight even more.
Right.
What are some things that, as we're kind of closing out here, Sarah, as it relates to this body acceptance, what's just on your heart to share with the listeners to help them, remind them that their thoughts are creating their reality?
Well, your mind only knows the past. Your mind has zero idea of the future, no matter how much we want to think it does. Our mind only knows the past. And it's just replaying the past over and over and over and over again. And the best way that I know to become aware of those thoughts, which are creating your reality, is meditation. Is sitting with your thoughts and just hearing them. And to go back to the conversation of, we don't give ourselves the space to feel. We don't give ourselves the space often to sit and listen. But giving yourself the space, knowing that you are safe to hear that your thoughts are not you. Your thoughts create your reality, and your thoughts are not you. They are lines that have been collected over time from different people, from their own pain, from their own trauma, from the media, from things people said to you, but these are not true. What is true is what you want to be true. And accepting that as a reality, that everything I want and desire is true if I let it be. And I need to provide myself the safety, the love, and the freedom to express that. And I know the fear, I've felt the fear of being afraid to express myself creatively, both in just voice and desires. I mean, hell, I even just realized in December that I was actually so scared of the love that I deeply desired. And when that fear came up, I was like, oh shit, wow, that's hilarious. The thing that I want most is actually what I fear the most. Oh, get that.
Sarah, it's funny you say that. That actually came up for me too. Matt and I have been working on it. I realized that while I've been pointing the finger at him about, fear of commitment, that I looked at my own shit and went, oh my God, Katie, yes, I teach this, you guys. I teach this from experience. I teach this from I'm like, why am I putting this pressure on us to be at the next level when we're just where we are today? And I realized I'm like, oh my God, you actually have a really big fear of truly being loved. And what's amazing is while, yes, I do have a partner that fully loves me and accepts me and reminds me, I realize that that's my greatest lesson with him. It's not to be in love. That's not our greatest lesson. I'm like, I love you and I like you, but that's not our greatest lesson. I think the greatest lesson that he's been teaching me is very on topic of what we're discussing today, which is, where do I still believe that I'm not worthy of love?
Yeah.
What are the ways in which he's expressing that he loves me because I'm too much, because I have quirks, because, he's got someone of love, the first flyer that ever went up, when I was putting him up, he's got it on his fridge. There's just this level of acceptance that I feel with him that is a daily reminder that that's the work that I need to do, because it doesn't matter if he feels that way about me. It matters if I feel that way about me. And believe me, Sarah, I have come very far from it, but to have also that same realization of the thing that I want the most, I am still fearing.
Yeah.
Woo.
Woo.
I was like, let's get the therapist a couple extra bucks this month.
Yeah, right.
Go a little deep. Yeah. I was like, whoa.
Right.
But you called on something too that was really important, is that we can, I'm assuming, and I know you run a meditation group each week. Are you still doing that?
Yeah. So I do, I have Joy Space, which is my monthly virtual online twice a week meditations. Yeah.
Oh, you bumped it up to twice a month?
Yes. So twice a week.
Yeah.
And then the new moon circle and the full moon joy flow.
Oh my God, such a good idea, because when you were talking about how these thoughts aren't ours, but they're from the media and from past relationships and things that people have said to us and their traumas and all this other stuff, is that I can be in a space where I've meditated, oh, kumbaya, namaste, feeling really good. And then all of a sudden I hear this really loud fear that just comes and knocks me upside the head. And I'm like, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? So I think what you're encouraging us to do is that whether it's 5 deep breaths, or whether it's, laying in meditation or sitting in meditation for an hour, whatever it may be for you, that you can do it multiple times a day as it's coming up to redirect the thoughts.
Well, and here's the thing, meditation isn't meant to be sitting eyes closed, cross-legged for 5 hours a day and that being it. Meditation is to move through life. When you can let your entire life become a meditation. And as you just said so beautifully, just notice it throughout the day. Take a breath. When you hear that fear coming in, when you feel that anxiety coming in, that is your cue to pause, breathe, and ask, is this fear or is this love? That's a question I love to ask.
Is this fear? Is it love? That's so true. I was just getting my eyebrows waxed, funny enough. And
they look great.
Oh, thank you. I was laying on the table and the bed is warm. And all of a sudden my mind started racing to, oh shit, I got to get that newsletter out. They're asking me to, do the draft of it, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I was like, I got to meditate before I talk to Sarah. And then all of a sudden I was like, where am I going to fit that in? My mind's going, right? And all of a sudden I was like, you can do it right now. So I started like, I put my hands on my belly and I just allowed
Oh
the breath
yeah.
to take over. And she was talking, but she's super quiet, so I could barely hear her. But she
Yeah.
was just, the breath was going, the table was warm. I started feeling all the sensations and was like, this is your moment of meditation to
Yes.
just get back in.
Can I just tell you that getting waxed is actually like one of my favorite places to meditate? Like I love getting waxed because I know it's an opportunity that I get to just meditate and just be. And it
Totally.
also it helps with the pain, right? Because you're just like,
It
I'm
does
just
help with the pain because you're
experiencing
breathing.
this. Yeah.
Musa, Musa. It's so true because it actually is my favorite time too, because I can't be on my phone. I'm
Yeah.
laying down, which is the way I prefer to meditate anyway. Yeah, I think to your point, letting meditation just be the joy of life, the flow of life.
Yes. Joy
So
flow.
joy flow. Sarah, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
This has been fantastic. I feel like there's 15 nuggets and tangents that we could go down, and
I
it's
know, I
been
was gonna say,
obsessive.
think we're gonna need a remix. Gonna
Uh-huh,
have to have you back
totally.
on again.
Yeah.
You guys, if anybody has questions who's listening to this live, or you want to respond in the when this goes up live in a couple of weeks, you absolutely can, and we can get them to Sarah, and we can include them in our next time that we do this. But thank you guys for joining, and Sarah, thank you so much. This was really great. Tell
Thank
everybody
you.
like, you know, how they can get in touch with you, and if they also want to sign up for your virtual membership, which by the way,
Yeah.
I've been a part of, you guys, and it's really fantastic, like really, really good.
It's just such an amazing community of people who show up so fully as themselves, no matter what is on their heart. And that's why I love it. So that's Joy Space. It's $27 a month, twice weekly meditations and journaling, a once a month new moon circle, and full moon joy flow, which is my yoga practice, which has ecstatic dance in it. And that you can sign up sarahjgaines.com/joyspace. And then otherwise, Instagram is probably the best way to find me at Sarah J. Gaines. I'm that on Twitter as well, if people are on Twitter. Been tweeting a little bit more recently.
That's awesome.
And that's it. I'm really easy to find. Please reach out, and yeah, just appreciate being here.
Absolutely. You guys, please be sure to say hi to Sarah. It's absolutely wonderful. And I've been, like I said, a part of the New Moon Circle and part of the morning meditations, and it's life-changing. And it's incredible. Like you said, the community is really strong, where some people will share and man, they don't just share the top level, surface level shit. No, they go deep. And it's a really beautiful space wherever you're at in your journey. If you want to be surface level or if you want to go deeper, there's permission to do that. So awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much.